Hello, friend. Thanks for pressing play on this episode of the Brassy Broadcast. I've got some big news I'm excited to share. My Awkward Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Journal series has now turned into a grown-up podcast. I'm co-hosting a brand new show with my coach, AJ Clingerman. It's called Beauty and the Gi, and it's a podcast about grappling and life from the female perspective. Our vision is that this podcast will ultimately be a resource and community builder for the beautifully diverse community of women in the sport. And we want to incorporate their voices into the podcast and share their experiences. We're keeping most of these episodes short and focused on a single topic. We love podcasting and talking about BJJ, but we would rather be out there rolling than talking about it. So the episodes are short. One of the segments I'm most excited about is our something to try on the mat and something to try off the mat. In the short time that I've been practicing BJJ, I have learned so much on the mat that I can put into practice in my life off the mat. Here is the intro episode of Beauty and the Gi. You can subscribe to it in all the places that you get your podcasts. Welcome to Beauty and the Gi, the podcast all about grappling and life from the female perspective. In this episode, we are introducing you to the podcast and what it's about and what you can expect. I'm Jen Eads. I'm a white belt full of questions and curiosity about all things jiu-jitsu. In my life off the mat, I work with industry experts and business owners to help them produce podcasts.
I'm AJ Clingerman, a world champion purple belt, a little obsessed with jiu-jitsu. In my life off the mat, sorry, what is that?
I don't know, because I don't know that you have one.
Right? No, I, along with my husband, own two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies, Indiana Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy and Endurance BJJ in Central Indiana. I spend a great deal of my time training and teaching jiu-jitsu and self-defense.
AJ, why did you want to start this podcast?
It's definitely been something that I've wanted to do for probably 2 or 3 years now and just haven't done it. And you had started a jiu-jitsu journal when you first started jiu-jitsu, and I loved it. And actually my thought was, before you wrap it up, we should just do a podcast together. Just one, kind of wrapping it up. And then you came to me and that started it.
It did. And I wanted it because I had been doing my Awkward Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Journal and in my regular podcast, and I will share a link to that in the show notes. But as someone that's just starting this journey, you want to kind of learn everything and get all the information. So I, of course, started looking for podcasts. And there's a lot out there, and there's some really good ones, but I couldn't find the one that was just exactly what I wanted. And I've got microphones and gear and an awesome co-host, so I figured why not just make our own?
Yeah, you messaged me and you said, "Okay, it's time. I'm gonna do this." And I was like, "All right, well, ideally, I'd like to do this with you." And you're like, "Sold. Let's do this."
Super easy. Now I have some accountability.
Same, which is obviously what I needed since I wanted to do this for 3 years. So same.
So what can our friends expect from this podcast?
Yeah, I think one, they'll be fairly brief. We're not going to have the 2 to 3 hour podcasts.
Like that 20, 25
Yeah, that's
minute.
the goal. That's the goal for sure. So, but also whether you're wanting or thinking about doing jiu-jitsu or just starting or have been doing it for several years, I think we have a good perspective between the two of us to kind of help you along that journey, whether it's, you want to compete or you're scared to even get started training, any of that. So lots of things of that nature.
And I also wanted to do the podcast because what I found from my own experience in podcasting is that it's a really cool way to meet new people in your community while you're also helping to nurture and support that community. So I'm really hoping that this podcast will kind of be that place where, maybe you're driving to class or you're driving to work and you can just put this in. Here's some conversation about jiu-jitsu. And then, if you have questions, if you have ideas or topics that you want us to talk about, please send those to us. You can email me at Jen, Jen, at brassybroad.com. but we are always looking for ideas and things to talk about because I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. Like, this podcast could be never ending.
That's the goal, right? I think we have like 30 different subjects right now that we want to go through. So yeah, we definitely have some good content. And I think we're going to do some short bonus episodes too with different themes. So it'll be exciting.
What do you feel is the unique perspective and experience that you bring to this conversation?
Well, I think, I've been training a long time. When anyone asks, it's kind of a trick question. I first trained in 1999. So 20 years ago. It feels crazy. But I just kind of dabbled in a little. I trained a lot in 2004, but we were already running a business not super successfully. Mm-hmm. So I went to work full time plus some part-time jobs, basically just to try and keep the business open. So I didn't really get back into training a lot until 2011. So I've been training a long time, but I've been in the game a really long time. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of the people. It's funny. Somebody like Chewy, who is, a famous jiu-jitsu person. And I'm like, I know that kid when he started jiu-jitsu, I remember him being that white belt. And so I think that's going to be a fun perspective. Also, I've been building a women's team for a few years now. So I really want to grow women's jiu-jitsu as a whole. So I think having that will be fun.
I think so too.
How about you?
I'm just excited to sit across the table and ask you all the questions about all the things. I think that the curiosity and just being new and also starting this at 47, there's a piece of me that's like, oh, I totally missed out. But I don't know if there was another period in my life where I just would have been so just over myself and willing to go get out on the mat and look awkward and weird like I did this morning before we came over here and started recording this episode. I think you kind of get the stuff finds you when you're ready for it. And I don't think up until, last year, I was probably even ready for this. So I'm really excited about it. And it's been really fun so far. I'm learning new stuff every day. That's for sure. And I think this podcast is just a way to build that knowledge. And then also it's a really cool way to kind of share what I'm learning and share what you've learned already with all of our new jiu-jitsu friends that are listening.
Yeah. I loved your Awkward Jiu-Jitsu Journal just because I'm so far separated from starting jiu-jitsu, but I work with new people every week. So it's really nice to actually hear kind of the behind the scenes of what people are thinking and feeling when they're first starting. So it was really helpful for me. And I recommended it to, all my coaches and everything, you should listen to this. So it kind of helps you with that. So I think that'll be really good for us too, is the person that's been around a million years and the person that's brand new. I think it'll be good.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. We are keeping this episode super short and to the point. But before we wrap this up, AJ, I know that you've got women's camp coming up, and I do want you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm stupid excited for women's camp. We have women's camp coming up in Indianapolis, May 3rd through the 5th. Previous years, we've had between 50 and 60 women attend this camp. This will be our 6th camp. We usually sell out the week before camp. And this time we sold out in January. And so I was like, just add 10 more people. I called my husband, just add 10. And he added 10 and we sold out immediately. And we did it one more time. And I was like, okay, we have to find a bigger venue. So at this point, we're looking at probably having about 130, maybe push to 150 women at this camp. There are still a handful of spots left. So if you're interested in registering, you can go to thefighthub.com. That's hub, H-U-B, not club. We do talk about Fight Hub.
I will have a link to that in the show notes. So all you have to do is click.
Yes. Awesome. So you can still register for that right now. Currently, we have women from 13 different states and 2 different countries.
Whoa, that's going to be awesome.
I'm so excited.
I'm registered. I'm excited. I can't wait. And in a future episode, we're actually going to be talking about what you can expect.
Absolutely.
At camp. All right. That wraps this one up.
Yeah. Short and sweet.
Now, what we are going to ask you to do is subscribe to this podcast. If you know somebody else that needs to listen to it, please share it with them. And you can connect with us on Instagram. That is my jam. And you will find me on Instagram at BrassyBroadJen, 1N.
Awesome. And you can find me on Instagram. I think it's just AJ Clingerman. There might be a dot in between the J and the C. I don't know.
I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Good. I should know my Instagram handle, but I don't.
All right. Now I feel like we need some kind of, we'll see you.
See you on the mat.
Yeah.
That's how I end every email. We'll see you on the mat.
Okay. We'll see you on the mat. Or you say it. You say it.
We'll see you on the mat. Maybe we should say it together.
Okay.
Right.
1, 2, 3.
We'll see you on the mat.
Do you have a jiu-jitsu loving friend that needs to hear this podcast? Then share it with them. You can follow my BJJ adventures on Instagram at BrassyBroadJen and also at Beauty and the Gi podcast. Thanks for listening. Now get out in the world or on the mat and do some good.